All right, guys, so if we would have been in school today, I would have done the same exact thing. So I want to take a little bit of time and go over a couple of problems that I noticed people were having problems with. Main thing that I was noticing are the fractions. So I want to go over the fractions. When you are given a fraction, you have to get a common denominator. So to get a common denominator here, we have an 8, a 2, and this v, you want to put it as v over 1. So the common denominator that all three of these would have would be an 8. So this already has an 8. So to get the 1/2 to have an 8, you would multiply the top and the bottom by 4. And then you would get this to be an 8 by multiplying the top and bottom by 8. So then you do the multiplication and you get 8v over 8 minus 4 over 8 equals 5 over 8. Once you have a common denominator, the cool part is they're gone. So then you rewrite it as 8v minus 4 equals 5. And you just have a two-step equation to solve. So then you add 4. 8v equals 9. And then divide by 8. Always divide by the number that's in front of the variable. And you get v equals 1.125. I think a lot of people got freaked out because it was a decimal, but you did it right. Another one that I want to go over is going to be number 5. There's a little bit of combining like terms and stuff that's got to happen here. So when you're combining like terms, so like 8d, 5d, and 7, and this negative 7d, when I combine them all together, I use the signs that's out in front of them. So I have 8 plus 5 minus 7. 8 plus 5 is 13. 13 minus 7 is 6. So I have 6d, bring down the plus 24, equals 0. And then you just have a two-step equation. Subtract 24. 6d equals negative 24. And then divide by 6. And I get d to equal negative 4. Another one that I wanted to touch on just with the solving would be like number 8 when you have distributing, and then I made this one even harder on myself because it's distributing and there's variables on both sides. So whenever you see the parentheses, that does mean that you distribute, which means multiply, and you get negative 12x minus 24 equals 12x plus 24. So I like to keep my variables positive. So this is where I told you guys that don't call me after midnight. We did the distributing. C stands for combine like terms. We don't have anything to combine. So then we are going to move the variables. When I move my variables, I like to keep my variables positive. And when you move them, you have to move them to the other side of the equal sign using the opposite operation. So I actually am going to add 12x. So I bring down, this is a negative 24 equals 12 plus 12 is 24. And then bring down that plus 24. So I moved my variables. Now I'm going to do the A part of this, which is add or subtract to get your variables to the other side. So I moved my variables over to the right. I need to add or subtract to bring things to the other side. This is a positive 24, so I'm going to subtract 24. Negative 24 minus 24 is not 0. It's negative 48 equals 24x. And then M stands for multiply or divide. In this case, I'm going to divide because I have multiplication going on. Divide by 24, and you get x equal negative 2. So that's 3 of the top portion. The rest of them you should be okay with if you understand that one. The other thing I want to point out on the front page are problems like 11 and 12. It says how many solutions, if any, does the equation have? So these were the problems where we had all solutions or infinite solutions, no solutions, or it could have one solution. So the main thing to keep in mind when you get to these two, if you end up getting, like for this one, if you were to distribute, you would get 3m plus 7 equals 3m plus 27. So then when I move my variables and subtract 3m, they cancel. And I'm left with 7 equals 27, which is, that's a 7. Pretend that looks like a really good 7. Which is not true. So this would be no solution. If it were to be all or infinite solutions, that means that the left and the right hand side would actually be equal to each other. And then if it has one solution, it's kind of like up here where you still have a variable left over. So just be careful with those ones and make sure you're checking them on GoFormative. The next page, we do have some story problems. Number 13, this type of a problem popped up on a quiz and a test, I believe, a couple of times. Same thing with 14. Make sure that you're reading these really well and trying them out. They may pop up on your exam. Hint, hint, wink, wink. Number 14, main thing to remember on this one that I've seen people having issues with is that Angela has a $20 gift certificate and Neil paid the rest, which was $9.50. So in total, they would have paid $29.50. So the other thing you need to remember is just because it says a movie ticket costs $, these two are going on a date together, so they don't just buy one ticket, they buy two. So make sure you take the fact that you have two tickets into account. And each of them don't get a popcorn. Remember, this is a date, so they're going to share the popcorn and all that fun stuff, and they're sharing a drink, which is, for me as a germaphobe, that grosses me out, but whatever. So keep that in mind as you're setting these two up and solving them and checking them in GoFormative. Number 15, so this was our literal equations. For my online kids, this was kind of tough. So when you are solving for y, so basically if you're given this equation, which is in standard form, and I want to get it into slope-intercept form. To get it into slope-intercept form, I need to get y by itself. So to get y by itself, I need to get rid of the x's first. So I'm going to add 3x. So then I have 2y equals, and then I would write this as 3x plus 8. Slope-intercept form or any form always has the x's come out front. Then to get y by itself, because it's still not by itself yet, you're going to divide everything by 2. So then you get y equals 3 over 2. It's not, I mean, you could write 1.5, but it's a slope. So you want to leave it as a fraction because it's rise over run. And then positive 8 divided by 2 is a positive 4. And that's solved for y. That's all you got to do. 16 says which number is a solution to the inequality. So it's not having you solve, I mean, we're going to have to solve it, but which one of these numbers, if I were to plug it in for x, would actually be a solution to the inequality? So when you are solving these inequalities, just as a reminder, you solve them exactly the same way that you solved the equations on the front page. So we would add 15, you'd get 3x greater than or equal to 18, divide by 3, you get x is greater than or equal to 6. So that means the solutions would be any x value that's bigger than 6 or equal to 6. So that's why D is the correct answer. If one of these would have been even like 8 or 10, those could have also been possible answers as well. So any number that is greater than or equal to 6 in this case would have worked. 17 and 18, now you are looking at inequalities and their graphs. So main thing to keep in mind, these greater than signs with no equal to underneath, these are going to be open circles. These less than and equal to's or less than or equal to's, or whenever they have the equal to, means that it's going to be a closed circle. So we are looking for the graph that has a closed circle on 5. Closed, closed. These ones are open. So I'm going to eliminate those. Multiple choice, if I were you guys, I would be eliminating any possible choices that aren't true. Then it says that x is less than 5. So where are the values that are less than 5? To the left or to the right? All of these numbers are less than. That's all you got to do. So there's your inequalities and the graphing. I wanted to go over a couple of inequalities. Again, you solve these inequalities the same exact way as you solve an equation. So you would add 8. 2d is less than negative 4, divide by 2. Now right here, some of you are like, wait a minute, I remember there was a rule with the inequalities and dividing. You only flip your inequality, that's what the rule is, if the number in front of the variable or whatever you actually are dividing by is negative. You're dividing by 2 here, so you leave it alone. And that would be your solution. And you leave it as is. You're not going to have to graph tomorrow. You'll have to identify graphs, but you're not actually going to have to do any of the graphing. Just make sure you know what the graphs should look like. I do want to walk through 24. You would subtract 5. Negative 3g is less than or equal to 9. Then you would divide by negative 3. So now because we're dividing by a negative, that is when you flip your inequality. And that's your solution. Let's take a look at 27. So for 27, I need to combine these together. I get negative 5x plus 9 is less than 15 minus 5x. So I have variables on both sides, so I'm going to bring them over. I'm going to move my variables. So when I add 5x, I end up with 9 is less than 15. Is that true? Yes, it is. So this would be an all or infinite solutions. So those do pop up here as well. Let's take a look at these compound inequalities. When you are solving these compound inequalities, there's two different types that you could see. They could all be attached together or they could be separate. When they are separate like this, you solve them the same way that we did up top. So solve this one, get your answer, solve this one, get your answer, and then you're good to go. So I'm not really going to touch on this one. This is what I'm a little bit more concerned, I guess you could say, about. Here, when you solve it, I actually like these more than these because these ones you solve it all at the same time. So your ultimate goal is to get x by itself in the middle. So to get x by itself, we use those same don't call me after midnights. You're going to add 4. But you don't just add 4 in the middle. You add 4 on the left and you add 4 on the right. It cancels from the middle. Negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. Bring down the inequalities. Bring down whatever's left. 4 plus 4 is 8. Then to get x by itself, you're going to divide by 2. So then you get negative 2 less than or equal to x less than 4. And that's how you would write it. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, reach out. Number 30 wants you to find the rate of change. Rate of change is the same thing as slope. So whenever you see the word rate of change, make sure that you remember that that is the same thing as slope. So to find the slope in a table, you just have to figure out how are the y's changing, how are the x's changing, write them as a fraction. But remember, when you write your fraction, you write it right over left or y over x. This number goes on top first. So to go from 260 to 390, I go up 130. And to go from 4 to 6, I go up 2. So when I write my rate of change or when I write my slope, I write it as 130 over 2, which reduces to 65. Which this would be 65 miles per hour. Let's see what else we have here that we can chat about. I don't want to do them all for you. 31, finding the slope of a line. You're going to do rise over run. Find 2 good points. Like that's a good point. That's a good point. So how do I get from here to here? I go 1, 2 up. 1, 2, 3 to the right. That's it. 32, to find the slope, you're going to stack your points and do like what we did with the table. So you're going to figure out how do you get from 7 to negative 1? You go down 8. To get from 5 to 6, you go up 1. So when you write your slope, you write it y over x. So negative 8 over 1, which reduces to negative 8. I know I'm going a little bit fast, but I'm about to run out of time and I don't want this to get crazy long. 33, to write the slope-intercept form, you need to know your slope and you need to know your y-intercept. Y-intercept is where your graph is crossing the y-axis. This one's kind of junky, but it looks like it's at 0.5. So then to find the slope, you go from point to point, and I go 1, 2, 3 down, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to the right. This is a junky one, sorry guys. So then you would write it as y equals negative 3 over 10 x plus 0.5. That one's junky. All right, I'm going to start the next video with number 34.